Don your ceremonial plaid, for it is time to talk about Supernatural.
Son of a bitch!
Supernatural is a show. It existed. It ran for 15 seasons on the CW, eventually ending in November 2020. My feelings about Supernatural are best described as complex. I always wanted more from the show than it was capable of giving. There were some episodes that were just very well written. There were some characters that I loved. There were jokes that made me actually laugh. And there were stories that made me feel real human feelings. But the show was also really, really bad sometimes. And when the show was bad, it was awful. They tended to throw any sort of established canon or sense of continuity just right out the window. I sometimes think the writers didn't even watch episodes that they didn't work on. And it eventually became clear that any semblance of forethought or planning had just disappeared completely. I'm going to assume if you're watching this video that you are at least somewhat familiar with the show and the characters and the main cast. And if you're not, you should be warned that I do spoil quite a bit of Supernatural in this video, including the last episode. After the Supernatural series ended, Jensen Ackles announced that he and his wife and their production company were working on a new Supernatural prequel series. There was drama surrounding this announcement at the time because Jared Padalecki revealed that Jensen never even told him about it. And information about this prequel has trickled out ever since. It's set to debut on the CW sometime this fall, and on May 19th, the first official trailer was unleashed upon the world.
But I'm on a new mission, and this story is just beginning.
As long as there's a Winchester alive, there's hope.
Unfortunately, it looks like everything bad from the original Supernatural series has been cherry-picked and thrown in a blender. The most egregious aspect of this show appears to be the fact that it just breaks established canon completely, no matter what Jensen says. The most straightforward way to point out everything wrong with this is by walking through the trailer. So, let's go.
The Winchester story. It's always been a mystery.
Okay, right off the bat, 7 seconds in. Not a strong start. Which part of this story has been a mystery for you? You have traveled back in time and met your parents when they were young. Twice. You witnessed Mary Winchester making a deal with Yellow Eyes that would eventually lead to her death, which would be the inciting event that would kick off this entire series. Your grandfather, your mother's father, Samuel Campbell, was also brought back from the dead in season 6. You had him around for an entire season before he died again. You couldn't have asked him some questions in that time?
Guys, give me a second with my grandsons here, please.
And then, in season 8, your other grandfather, Henry Winchester, travels through time to your present day, and the two of you get to, sit down and talk.
I've just met my grandsons, haven't I? Henry Winchester. It's a pleasure.
And then, in the last episode of season 11, Mary Winchester herself is brought back from the dead. Here she is, your dead mom. Sure, things were tense at times, but you could have asked her some questions. You could have gone for milkshakes and asked her, hey, Mom, by the way, how did you and Dad meet? Oh, wait! Dean doesn't have to ask, because to prove to the now resurrected Mary that he is her son and he knows her, he tells her the story of how she and John Winchester met.
March 23rd, 1972, you walked out of a movie theater, Slaughterhouse 5. You loved it. And you bumped into a big Marine and you knocked him flat on his ass. You were embarrassed and he laughed it off, said you could make it up to him with a cup of coffee.
By the way, here's a sidebar rant. I think that when God's sister Amara brought Mary Winchester back from the dead, and wow, that must sound really weird to anyone who did not get that far in the series, but I think that when Mary was resurrected, they should have brought back the younger Mary Winchester actress, Amy Gumenick. No shade at Samantha Smith whatsoever, she's a great actress, but I think that when Mary was brought back, she was supposed to be brought back like at the exact physical moment she was at when she died, same nightgown and everything. And at that point in time, Mary Winchester was 29 years old. But during the time the episode aired, Samantha Smith was 47. And I think there was supposed to be this dynamic where Sam and Dean have their mom back, but like she's younger than them, she's only 29, and she is having trouble adjusting to the fact that she has adult sons who are now older than her, and they want this maternal figure, but she's only 29, so it's weird. You just don't get that feeling as strongly when you have an actress who's nearly 20 years older than the character, and plus Samantha Smith was the actress that we associate with Mom Mary Winchester, as opposed to Amy Gumenick, who is the actress who we kind of have that little bit of separation with, that she is young Mary Winchester. Anyway, back to the rant. In addition to Mary Winchester being brought back from the dead, in season 14, episode 13, a magic pearl thing brings John Winchester back from the dead. And they get to spend like a whole fun day together and have this happy family dinner where we get this montage of them like chatting and laughing a lot. So again, what mysteries? If anything, at this point, Sam and Dean know more about their parents' lives than their parents did.
Was it the hunt for evil that drew them together?
No.
Or was it something more?
The Men of Letters, you're trying to bring the Men of Letters into this? Okay, we'll come back to that one. So here we see John Winchester getting attacked by a demon. And Mary, a petite 19-year-old woman, is able to like roundhouse kick this demon in the face and send it flying backwards. Don't demons have powers and like superhuman strength? We also see John punch her in the face by accident. Twice. Romantic. Mary mentions that her dad is missing, that he went hunting a demon and disappeared. It seems like demons are going to be kind of the big monster of the series, although we do see this clawed sewer beast. Also, we know that Samuel Campbell doesn't die because he is killed later by Azazel. That's not gonna change, right, Jensen?
You've been chasing your dad since he walked out our door?
Was my dad a hunter? Did you ever hear of Henry Winchester?
In the trailer, John also mentions that his father went missing, or he left, and we know from the Supernatural series, when they added the Men of Letters storyline, that Henry Winchester was a man of letters, and he actually disappeared because he traveled to the future to try to escape the Night of Hell Abaddon, but while he was there, he did die. This is not directly conflicted in the trailer, I'm just reminding everyone. When Dean and Sam learned about the Men of Letters in season 8, this was brand new information to them. So if John had known about this secret monster hunting society, he never told them, or told anyone, or wrote it in his journal. And Mary also seemed to be completely unfamiliar with the Men of Letters when she was brought back from the dead and taken to the bunker. By the way, even Supernatural doesn't stick with its own established canon, because in the episode where Dean travels back to 1973 and he meets his dad as a young man, someone tells John to say hi to his father, and John's just like, yeah, sure, thanks.
Say hello to your old man for me.
You got it, Mr. D.
But then in season 8, we see that John was still a child when his dad left. Anyway, in this trailer, the demon from earlier comes back in a new host, and then gets hit by a van. This effect is not very good. A new character, Carlos, squirts the demon with some holy water from a water gun, a la Kevin Tran, and the demon actually seems to drop backwards. In Supernatural, demons were a little bit harder to fight than that. You could throw an entire glass of holy water in a demon's face, and they'd sizzle and get real mad, but they'd ultimately just kind of shake it off. At least we have Carlos. He seems like a fun character.
Jimmy, Janice, Jim Morrison.
But at least we have Carlos is not really enough to build a TV show upon. They do get a few details right, like that John was a mechanic from a family of mechanics, and he was also a veteran, and Mary was a hunter from a family of hunters, but she clearly wants to leave the life.
When I was a kid, I thought there was a monster under my bed. And my dad always said, "Don't worry, son. I know how to trap it."
Sorry, but what a weird thing to tell your kid. You're not telling them that there's nothing there, or that you'll protect them, or that you'll even get rid of the monster. It's more like, what's that, kiddo? There's a monster under your bed. Well, let's catch it. So a good chunk of this trailer is montage-esque shots of monster hunting shenanigans. So this feels like as good a point as any to mention the fact that Supernatural made it pretty clear that John Winchester knew nothing about monsters or hunting until after Mary died.
John Winchester mixing it up with spirits. Can you imagine?
Hold on. John's a really, really nice, naive civilian.
He saw his wife burning up on the ceiling and thought, hey, that is not natural. And then in his grief from losing his wife and who knows, maybe some PTSD from having been in combat, he becomes obsessed with finding out what happened to her and then ultimately hunting the thing that killed her. He was also a deeply flawed man. John Winchester drank too much, he was an abusive father, and he had that whole other second family, Adam and his mom, that he never told Sam and Dean about. In one episode, Sam says that he thought that John and Mary had the perfect marriage, and Dean tells him that no, it was only perfect after Mary died. Even at one point while they were married, John actually moved out.
Think about what? You have 2 boys at home.
Mom and Dad were fighting, and then he moved out for a couple days.
Dad always said they had the perfect marriage.
It wasn't perfect until after she died.
Fine, then don't.
In order to make any aspects of John's knowledge and involvement with hunting monsters or the Men of Letters make sense, they're going to have to erase his memory. But when?
To get to the truth, the real story means going way back to 1972. The day Dad came home from the war.
In the Supernatural Season 4 episode, in the beginning, Dean travels back in time to 1973. He sees his parents dating. Mary talks about how John is going to propose soon, and it is very clear that John knows nothing about hunting.
You didn't feel any of those cold spots, did you?
Nope.
You didn't happen to smell any sulfur by chance?
No.
There been any cattle mutilations in town recently?
Okay, mister, stop it.
The thing that Mary likes about him is that he is a sweet, normal dude and definitely not a hunter.
He's sweet, kind. Even after the war, after everything, he still believes in happily ever after, you know? He's everything a hunter isn't.
In the episode, the song remains the same, which takes place in 1978 due to more time travel antics. Mary tells Dean and Sam that she has given up hunting and that John knows nothing about that life.
I don't do that anymore. I have a normal life now. You have to go. Where do we go?
Out of here. We gotta move now, though.
Okay, but what do I tell John?
Just tell him.
And then he finds out in that episode before almost immediately having his memory wiped, like a couple hours later.
Monsters are real.
I'm sorry, I
And
didn't
you
know how
fight them? All of you?
Yeah.
How long?
all my life.
They have made it very clear again and again and again that John knew nothing about ghosts or monsters or hunting before Mary died.
Hey, what's the deal with the thing on the paper?
It's a sigil. It means...
I don't care what it means. Where's it go? Y'all might have treated me like a fool, but I am not useless. I can draw a damn whatever it is, a sigil.
In fact, that one time in 1978 that he found out about hunting before his memory was erased by the Archangel Michael, he was horrified at the idea that someone would raise their children to be hunters.
How long have you known about this hunting stuff?
My dad raised me in it.
Yeah, what kind of irresponsible bastard lets a child anywhere near? You know, you could have been killed.
The core concept of the Winchesters' premise is John Winchester and Mary Campbell meet and fall in love. But we already know that story, and this isn't it.
Yeah, the union of John and Mary Winchester, very big deal upstairs. Top priority arrangement.
Are you saying that you fixed up our parents?
The orders were very clear. You and Sam needed to be born. Your parents were just meant to be.
Why are they even making this show? And also, when do the parts with Dean's narration take place? Like, when does Dean have time to just drive around and look for information about his parents? He's dead now, so you might think that this is an alternate reality. Except that it can't be because Supernatural established that Chuck destroyed them all. Although I guess that one Dean from that one alternate reality where he was like really posh and drove a Fiat is still kicking around in Brazil somewhere. If you wanted to make a Supernatural prequel series, the most natural time frame to set it would be after Mary's death, because you would get to see John first learning about the supernatural and starting his infamous journal, and you would see him meeting iconic characters like Bobby and Rufus and Ellen, and we could maybe meet Joe's dad. Am I the only one who doesn't really remember anything about Joe's dad? I assume he was dead. But we could also see John having a fling with Adam's mom, whose name I don't remember and can't be bothered to look up. The problem with that is that John Winchester is not necessarily a hero. As I said, he was a terrible father and a complicated man. And I just don't think the CW would tackle that very well. A nuanced portrayal of a grieving man pushed to the brink of horror and obsession while he tries and fails to raise his two young sons would not really appeal to the audience that the CW cultivates, that just wants to see sexy teens like do magic and deliver one-liners.
Nothing more hydrating than holy water.
I don't know. What do you think? What are your thoughts on the Winchesters prequel series? Are you just excited for some more supernatural content? A chance to kind of glimpse Jensen back in that role? Or do you kind of feel the same as me? If I'm wrong and the show is actually good, I will fully admit that. I will make a follow-up video just retracting all of my criticism, and the thumbnail will be me making like a guilty face with the text, "I was wrong," in just a large font. but I don't anticipate having to make that video.